Welcome to another enlightening episode of the Way Up podcast with your host, Geoff Knoll. Today we have the distinct honor of sitting down with an extraordinary individual whose journey embodies resilience and triumph over adversity. Join us as we delve into the life and wisdom of Tosombra Ty Kimes, affectionately known as the Resilience Queen. Ty's story is one of remarkable strength and courage. As a heart attack survivor, a survivor of sexual assault, and a disabled Army veteran, she has faced more than her fair share of challenges. Yet she doesn't just endure, she thrives. Ty's not only an ex-military spouse and a military caregiver, but also a devoted mom-preneur, a published author of multiple books, a certified etiquette coach, and a leader in the nonprofit space. In this episode, Ty imparts her profound perspective on life, one that sees every experience, no matter how difficult, as holding a purpose and value. She reminds us that without darkness, we never fully appreciate the stars, and that every obstacle we encounter serves to shape and strengthen us. Get ready to be inspired and uplifted as we embark on a journey of resilience, hope, and the power of embracing life's challenges with grace and determination. Welcome to the Way Up podcast, where we ascend to new heights together. The Way Up podcast is proudly brought to you by my real estate team, the Noble Team eXp Realty. We're redefining industry standards in the markets we operate, distinguishing ourselves from the crowd. We leverage our uniqueness to gain a strategic edge, all while elevating not only ourselves, but also those in our world, including our competitors. Join us on this journey. Your time and investment will undoubtedly be well placed. Hang with us till the end. I know you won't be disappointed. I am super excited once again to be here with my friend Tosombra Ty Kimes. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Geoff. Thank you for having me here.
I'm excited to have you. So we met through our local Chamber of Commerce. You're pretty involved in things in the community, so that's how you caught my attention. You're really involved with Blue Star Families. It's a nonprofit organization. I'm going to let you talk about that. But I wanted you to come on and just kind of share your story and your journey about how you have ended up where you are and what you can identify that set you up for success.
All right. Well, I love talking about how I got to where I'm at now. And really, this is the story of becoming, right? Because that's all it is. I think it was Steve Jobs that talked about connecting the dots and looking back and seeing how all that makes sense to where you're going to be directed at in the future. So looking back, I grew up as a military brat. I think I shared that with you. And yes, I use brat because, hey, when I was military, my dad was military. That was just a term that we used. It was a term of endearment and a belonging, really. So my father did over 20 years in the military, and I grew up mainly in Europe and Germany.
What branch was your dad?
Army.
Army?
All the way.
Okay.
Right? So I joined the Army myself. I served for about 6 years, and then I married into the military. That is a whole nother ball game, something that I learned as far as being a military spouse. So to all the military spouses listening, I get it. That's a whole nother journey. And then became a caregiver. What I mean by being a military caregiver, my ex at the time had got injured in Iraq. And so I got the phone call. You know, everyone always prepares military families. We always discuss and prepare for the knock on the door, you know, and God bless our Gold Star families. But there's also our family members who get that phone call and have to go out and support their injured service member. And that's a whole nother journey. I didn't identify as a caregiver, and that kind of led me to, you know, we moved here to Missouri, and I said, you know, I was dealing with so many things, and there was a friend of mine who started Blue Star Family. She brought the chapter here because that nonprofit started in 2009. So she said, Ty, you got to come out and to this caregiver event. This company's Blue Star Families. And I'm like, I have been in the military, around the military all my life. I don't know what you're talking about, Blue Star Families. What is this? So I kept saying I didn't need to go. And I didn't identify as a caregiver. And so she's just like, it's a caregiver event. You're a caregiver. And I'm like, I don't take care of old people. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. And anyhow, I ended up going because she's like, you've got to go for me. And when I did go, I just fell in love with the people that were around me because their stories were my stories. Their pains were my pains. There were things that I had kept hidden for so long. And I was realizing that I wasn't the only one. And I think that was kind of really a start of my journey because I always felt like the weird girl in the room, right? But really realizing that I'm not alone in that
Yeah.
that many of us feel like the weird girl in the room. I mean, maybe you don't feel like the weird girl in the room, Geoff, but maybe you felt like the
No,
weird guy in the room,
when
right?
we talked, when we sat down together a few weeks ago and talked, we actually, you addressed that. You said you felt like the weird girl. I'm like, for real? Because you're the confident person in the room. You come in and own it. So to feel it is just makes me connect with that because I feel like I'm out of place a lot of times. I have to remind myself that, you were invited here, you belong in the room, and that helps.
Absolutely.
It does help.
Absolutely. And it's funny how you were saying, I never saw you that way. I couldn't. And a lot of times too, I mean, like there's anxiety like really big inside. And I'm like, oh God, here I am. I think that one of the meetings we were in together, I was late. And I was like, you know what? I'm still going to go to this meeting. And dang it, I'm late, but I'm going to show up anyway. And I really didn't know what was going on, but I was there to support Bree, who's a friend of mine. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to show up to support Bree and support the organization. And one thing my father taught me growing up, he was very big on excellence, very big on discipline, and really, I always felt like, you know, if it's not my dad that I'm standing in front of, and it's somebody else, what can you say to me? You can't say anything to me worse than, what I've heard. But he always challenged me to see the best in people and to see that, the best in myself. So that was something for me. So that's how I can kind of go in those rooms. I'm still dealing with the anxiety. I'm still feeling like the weird girl in the room. Sometimes I've gotten a lot better with that, but to be able to say, you know what, I may not know why I'm here. I may not really fully feel like I belong here, but there's a reason for it, right? So, what is that reason? And what is the purpose of that? Because if I wasn't supposed to be, then I wouldn't be here. Um, my dad always taught, to look at people and to treat people the same, no matter who they are, right? Whether it's the president, whether it's the janitor, doesn't really matter, but you treat them, the way you want to be treated and with a level of respect and reverence. And, but you have to have that in there inside for yourself in order to give it to other people. So, for a long time, I really had to work on me. And, there's looking back, standing in front for the promotion boards, standing in front and having to come and stand confident and say all of your answers as if it may be wrong, but it doesn't sound like it's wrong because you're delivering it with such confidence that you're able to kind of persuade people. So all of those things have lessons, and they help silence and quench my anxiety a little bit. And that might be why you see what you see, your perception of me.
Well, and I love that you have these journals that you brought this in. This is
Yeah.
one that you have authored, but you're constantly putting out posts, the hey sis of positive self-talk. So,
Yes.
I can see that you're working through this stuff and helping other people work through it in the same time, because just because you are going through something or you're feeling something,
Right.
what are the chances that there's not a ton of other people that are feeling those same things and they feel isolated
Right.
because they have confidence issues?
Right.
But
And I'm glad you brought that up because we deal with so many things in silence, right? Um, my name, and thank you for saying it and saying it correctly, Tosombra means all darkness. And I used to hate my name growing up. I used to hate my name. I didn't understand, you know, why my mom would pick this name because people would mess it up all the time. I've been called Toshiba, Tuscumbia, which is real,
yeah,
by the
the
way.
thing.
It's here in Missouri.
Yeah.
But I grew up not to learning to not accept that part, right? And there's so many things that I have dealt with, MSTs in the military, the whole being a caregiver journey. Like there's so many dark things and experiences that I have. And I used to always wonder, like, why is this always happening to me? Right? Have you ever said that? Like, why is this happening to me? Like, why? But then I started to learn that, you know what, there's a purpose for that and even a reason for that. And when I discovered the meaning of my name, I this was probably hours before I was in the hospital for 5 days in Florida at Disney. So I just laughed even more because I was like, all darkness. How ironic, how fitting, how perfect. But the gentleman who told me that, he said, you can't have the stars, without the dark sky. You can't have, the moon shines, like everything it's there's a beauty in the darkness. And so my journey and my Hasis posts and everything is really about me being transparent because I'm not the only star out there, right? There's millions of stars in the sky, right? Millions of stars just stuck in this blank tapestry, this black, dark, hole. And they're not alone. And so we feel alone and we feel that, but and my little light through the darkness is I may not be the only one dealing with that. And that's something that I learned, but it took the power of me to be vulnerable, right? That took a lot. And I started writing because I needed to heal me. And I just found that by sharing it, other people were like, hey, then their little light's gone off. And just for the fact of them telling me, like, Ty, your words meant a lot to me. And then they open up and they share, these things happen. Um, it helped me shine a little brighter. You know what I mean? And we're all in this, and we're all connected. And I think that that's the important thing to remember. Like grace above all, and just to be able to be vulnerable and say, you know what, this is happening to me. There's a lot of really crazy crap that's going on and that I'm dealing with. And you may see me in rooms, and people see me in rooms, and they're like, "Oh, you have it together." Um, Funny story, a couple of years ago. I say a couple of years, Jeff, it's been like many, many years, but who's tracking, right?
Nope,
Who's tracking
nobody.
age, right? So at one point in time, I started a nonprofit for girls. And it was called Beautiful, Educated, Lovely Ladies Enriching Society, right? So this was
That's a mouthful.
yeah, bells is what I called them.
Oh, that's
So
easier.
right.
Okay.
So it was my bells. And so it's for my middle schoolers and high schoolers. And I had certain standards and certain, levels of you couldn't just get in to be a bell. You had to apply for it. You had a certain GPA, like all this. And there was a friend of mine who started another nonprofit for girls, and hers was based off of her story. And she really didn't have any requirements. She's just like, look, if you don't get pregnant, then that's it. But she got pregnant in high school, and so her story was a little bit different. I was senior class president. I made good grades. I did all the things, but I still struggled through all of this stuff. So my thought was, how do I help those that are still doing all the right things, but not getting any type of accolades and the support that they needed? And so, anyhow, my friend told me, she goes, girl, like, why don't you come in and teach etiquette? And I thought, why do you want me to teach a class if the girls are gonna like hate me? I gotta come in and say, this is how you have to do this, and this is how you see me. And she's like, well, I don't think you can relate to any of the other stuff. And I was just like, wow, you know, I don't look like what I go through. I don't carry myself
Hmm.
like the things that you would expect, right? I don't carry myself and walk around broken. Um, and people they don't get that. But I still went, I taught the class, I connected with those girls, and really it's just the importance of sharing because once I began to share with her some of my past and some of my stories, and really they're beautiful scars. Like, look, I've got these scars, that are valuable. I just, I cover them up, and not because, I'm ashamed of them, but just because I'm healed, and it's not
It's not part of your life that's affecting you on a
right.
daily anymore.
Exactly. Exactly. And so it's getting to that point of, helping others get there to where we can be healed and move forward to helping one another and just doing more things that are kind. And but also, I know I speak a lot on the positive stuff, but I still acknowledge all the pains. And I think it's important that we do that because oftentimes, you may see, well, oh, you're so optimistic or you're so this, but you know what? Yes, I see that things suck.
Mhm.
Yes, I feel it. Yes, I get angry, but what is it that I really want? What feels better?
Yeah.
So it's choosing between those two. Um, but anyhow, I love doing what I do in the community. You shared I do a lot. Um, and really, it's just about helping people. How do I help? How do I grow? How do I help others grow? Because, and for those that are listening, I know they're not the only one alone dealing with whatever they think they're dealing with by themselves. If you would share that, and be vulnerable to say, "Hey, I'm hurting and this is the situation," you may find a whole group of people that can relate. And someone's going to have a power story where they're like, "You know what? I was there and this is how I got out. And I was there and these are the things that I did to help empower me." So maybe they can use those tools to help empower themselves. So,
When you started writing and you're
mhm.
being vulnerable, were you planning on sharing that with the
Oh
world?
God.
I'm just
Yeah.
imagining journaling because I journal stuff and I'm like, just let real, raw
Hmm.
everything out. And my, I suppose I've battled with some of how transparent can I be?
Right.
How real can I be with
Hmm.
people and not catch all kinds of shit that is associated with that?
Right. Right.
Um,
I get it. I did not plan on sharing. Um, I was going through a lot. I was, gosh, I had discovered, and I know I speak highly about my dad, the dad who raised me, but I discovered in 2020 that he's not my biological father. That was painful. Um, I was dealing with that. I was dealing with, the separation, from being married. And, when you go from a military spouse, um, to a divorced military spouse, like there's nothing. I mean, you have a veteran. So even though a military spouse has been connected and has been supporting her spouse, for years, 10 years, 15 years, 20, it doesn't matter. The military is like, okay, bye. They focus on the veteran, but they no longer focus on the military spouse. So that was a challenge and a change, right? Not to mention, just the parenting issues and the other issues. And there were so many things that I was hurting. I was really, really hurting really bad. And writing was always an outlet for me. It was always a way for me to express myself. And a lot of it was like poetry. So I wrote This Poetic Life. I wrote that, gosh, I don't know, was that 2010? Um, I published it, but I didn't really share too many copies with it because it really was close to home. And I remember, my parents reading some of the poems that I had in there, and they took offense to that. Like, how could you say this? And da 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 da. And I'm just like, oh, so what it did was it made me close up, and then in the relationship that I was in, I also felt like, I didn't have the validation. I had a lot of negative words and other people's voices in my head that kept me silenced and kept me feeling small. And I just got to a point to where I realized like, what am I leaving behind? You know, I've come close to death several times. I had a heart attack. I'm a heart attack survivor. I remember being sick with COVID for 2 weeks, and my daughter couldn't come in the room. Of course, this was the middle of COVID. You had to isolate yourself. And I remember coming out of that room and I sat with her and I said, how have you been? I've missed you. And so she goes, "Mom, I thought you were going to die." And that was all I needed to really hear to remind myself, like, you know what? I know we're all going to die, right? But how do we want to die? Do I want to die miserable? Do I want to die where I had all of this light in me and all of this life left in me, but I was so afraid of what somebody else will say? I was so consumed by somebody else's voices that I couldn't even hear my own. I wasn't even comfortable with my own. Is that how I want to die? No. I want to die happy. I want to live and make sure that, my voice is I validate my own voice, you know? And I want to see what that journey of life looks like. And so I started writing more and sharing more. And really, again, it was, hearing from other people that, oh my God, thank you for sharing because this helped me. When I wrote the Hey Sis journal, the transformational journal for empowered living, right? Sounds so fun when I think about it sometimes, but this was a focal point for me because I was really in a heavy space, and I had to dive in and do something that was bigger than me, right? And so I started writing. I had been writing the Hey Sis posts because they were more of messages to myself, like, hey sis, you got this. And usually I roll over first thing in the morning, and I don't know, it's really weird. So I'll open up my phone, and I don't even think about it until this morning, but I pull my blanket over my head, and I'll pull my phone out, and I pull up my notes. And so it's like it's just a private little cubby between, me and myself and my higher self. And you know what I mean? Whatever, God, whatever, it's just me. And
Mhm.
so I'm like speaking to myself. And so I'm like, hey, sis, like, and I talk about what is the core of my message? What do I need to hear right in this moment, right now? And the words just flow. And so I just write and I just write and I just write, and then I share it. And I don't know why I started sharing it. I just felt like, you know what? I'm just going to put it out here. Facebook has this reminder thing where it comes up and it shows you your history. And 2 years ago, you said this.
Yeah.
And sometimes I look back at those things and I'm like, wow, I said that,
Yeah.
you know? So, and it's good to hear it again. And so that's how I write my Hey Sis posts. They come to me, and then I write them, but I knew that I needed to do something more because it wasn't enough at the time. It wasn't enough for me. I was still struggling, and I'm smiling, hey, everything's fine. Everything is fine. Yeah, everything is good, guys. How are you? But inside I'm like, oh, how do I get through this? And who can understand this? And how do I share? When is it safe to share? What? So I wrote the book, and it gave me something. It gave me a purpose. And, I continue to write now, but it helped me. It helped me show, like, okay, at least if something were to happen tomorrow, you know, I've got a book that's part of my legacy. That's going to live on, something that's helping people, and it's going to continue to help people. And that's the legacy that I want.
Yeah.
That's the legacy, something that continues to give, something that is good, right? Despite all of the darkness, despite all of the heavy shit, despite everything that tries to consume us and like take our souls. Suicide is a huge thing. I've battled with that. I've battled with depression. I've lost friends, and I wish that people knew that they're not alone in this. And if it's your direct circle around, like, hey, there's a way to grow, to learn to start putting up those boundaries and start loving yourself, right? But sometimes we need to hear it, and sometimes we need to know that, we're not the only ones covered in mud, you
Yeah. It
know?
makes a difference when you have an outside source saying that they're also struggling with something.
Right.
It gives you permission to open up and not carry it on you.
Right.
You can just share that moment with somebody, and that's real.
Yeah, exactly. And especially if it's someone that you admire, especially if it's someone you know, who looks cleaner, right?
Mhm.
Because their scars are covered, right? Or because their scars are healed. Their scars make them beautiful. And really, and I think that's the master of it, right? The beauty of it. It's not that they don't have those scars, but when you heal and you journey so much, and you're at this position where you're a little bit elevated, a little bit higher, you know, um, your scars don't look like scars, you know? It's like a beautiful tattoo, you know? And if people are inquisitive enough, maybe they may say, "Well, hey, how did you how did you get to where you are now? How did you get to look like this?" Oh, wow. Story time.
Yeah.
You know, like, open up a bottle of wine. It's going to take some time to go through all this shit, but I think it's important for us to share. And I'm still nervous some days. I think I still battle with that. But I think it's important for me to continue to persist and to push through, because my legacy is worth more. That dash in between, you know what I mean? I want it to be fun. I want to feel that fun. I want to feel that joy. I want to feel that happiness. And yes, I still feel the suck, because there's still some things and some
Sure.
days where I'm like, oh, I just don't want to get out of bed. I don't have it in me to get out of bed, and I allow myself that time to process without beating myself up. Like, come on, you should be, no, no, no. I don't beat myself
Sometimes I
up.
beat myself up. I'm like, man, you should be doing more. You should be doing more.
Don't do it. Yeah. We need breaks sometimes,
We do. We do need to
Mhm.
unplug sometimes.
Absolutely.
It's harder for some than others, I
Yeah.
think.
It is.
But
It is.
being able to recognize that it's okay and give
Mhm.
yourself some grace whenever you do have a down moment,
Right.
rather than just hold yourself to the standard of you can't have a down moment.
Right. Right.
It's difficult. It's not sustainable.
Right. But we need those moments, right? We need those moments. It's the ebbing and flowing. That was kind of the words I used this morning in my Hasis post, but it's, the ebb and flow of life. And sometimes we need to pause, and sometimes there's growth in the stillness. There's growth, and there's a beauty. We think change has to, there's a sharpening, right? There's a sharpening that happens. There's sparks that are flying, and sometimes it's a little abrasive and it's painful. But there are other times where, you know what? I don't know. What about the shining and the polishing? And it's soft, right? But you're still getting better. You're still healing. So you have to allow yourself those moments to process everything. The key is just not to act, right? Is to act only on the things that really align with you feeling good, with where you're wanting to go, and that's putting in a lot of work,
It is.
as a lot of work.
How often do you catch yourself questioning what you're doing? Is this what how I want to spend my day? Is this how I want people to see me? Because I do. I'm like, man, I've got a choice to make. How do I want people to see me? And
Right.
and really it's how do I want my impact on the world to be?
Right.
But the I'm trying to think of the word, just self-conscious a little bit,
Right.
worrying how other people view the
Right.
situation.
I think what I have learned and what I'm still learning to put to practice is, one, self-awareness, right? But two, I just try not to worry so much about what people say, not to take myself so seriously, right?
Mhm.
Rule number 6.
Rule number 6. You know how many times I've quoted that since you told me
Rule number
that?
6. Yes.
I think
It's
I think that should be shared actually.
okay.
Rule
Good.
number 6. We
All
can't
right.
we can't have an inside thing on the podcast.
Okay. All right. I'll share. So, two wonderful, wonderful, we'll call them military spouses because they move a lot, right? So at one point in their lives, two women, they were really close, really connected, because they were stationed together. And they had kids, and they've gone through, they bonded. I mean, they bonded. But then life happens, they moved, and lo and behold, one, is able to go and visit the other. So she shows up and she's like, girl, oh my God, I'm so happy to see you. Look at how big the kids are. So really, really excited. They're sitting in there chatting, having a cup, we'll just say, I want to say a glass of wine, but we can say a cup of tea. But truly,
It's wine.
yeah, they're probably having some wine. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure. So and it's good. So they're sitting there, they're sipping, enjoying each other's company. And the host, wife sits there and she goes, all of a sudden the kids bust in, one bust in, and they're like, Mom, oh my God. They just are losing it, right? You guys have kids, I mean, it can get pretty wild sometimes. And so she just calmly goes, hey, remember rule number 6. And the kid goes, oh, you're right, Mom. Thank you. Love you. And walks out the room. And so the visiting friend is like, wait, what the hell just happened? She's wondering. But of course, she don't say anything, because they were really having great conversation, laughing. So they continue on, they keep going, they keep conversating. And then lo and behold, one of the other kids busts in the room. And they're like mad, stomping, like just really irate and just uncontrollable, like just fuming. And so the mom is just calm and she said, hey, I understand, but remember rule number 6. And so the kid goes, thanks, mom, and leaves. And so now the friend is like, wait a minute. Okay, now I've let it slide the first time, but now obviously you're going to have to share with me what this rule number 6 is because I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I've never heard rule number 6. What is this? And to see the kids, I know these kids. Are these the same kids from years ago? And so the host friend, she's laughing. She's like, girl, yeah. She goes, okay, rule number 6. I'll tell you, it's really, really simple. Rule number 6, don't take yourself so goddamn seriously. Right. And so friends like laughing, but she's still kind of like, wait, what? Like, okay, but that's good. So if that's rule number 6, then what are the other rules? And so a friend leans in and so she's like, there are no other rules. Right. And so I learned this story, it's told differently by Dr. Wayne Dyer. Listen to him. He had my first affirmation that I would say constantly, which was, I intend to feel good. But anyhow, this rule number 6 made me realize like all of the times that who cares if people say what they're going to say because they're going to talk.
Yeah.
So if I'm not taking myself so seriously, it's not really going to affect me that much what they're saying.
Right.
You know what? They may say, hey, you know what? She has to have her phone like on her phone image size, the text really, really large before I got my glasses because I couldn't see. And you know what? I had to learn to laugh at myself rather than get offended or get hurt or whatever. I had to remember rule number 6.
Right.
When it comes to, standing in line or somebody cutting me off because I'm driving in traffic and, I used to be really irate, and be like, oh, how dare you cut me off? But now I'm like, yeah, well, okay. I remember rule number 6. I don't take myself so goddamn seriously.
Right.
They're just as important as I am.
Right.
So I really practice that and I have to remember that time and time again. And so that is rule number 6. So
Very helpful. And I have shared that story with at least 3 people
oh,
since we
good.
talked.
Good.
Like rule number 6. You got it. Rule number 6, you got to keep that in
You
mind.
got to keep it in mind. There are no other rules.
Right.
And it's just a good way to be light and love, right? Everyone always says, okay, I wish you light and, light and love and praying for you, all that good stuff. And really that's the essence of that, right?
Mhm.
Being able to laugh, being able to be joyful, being able to still smile despite. Why? Because it's rule number 6. And I know I'm covered. And I know everything's going to work out for me.
Yeah.
So what does it matter how it looks right now? Now, there are some times where storm clouds come and I'm really like, oh, I may be cussing somebody out, right? And, in private. But then I have to realize and bring myself, I have to have that self-awareness as a practice. It has to be a habit that you build, a skill that you strengthen. So once I am aware of what I'm doing, then I stop and say, hey, okay, 1, remember rule number 6. And 2, this doesn't need to be a part of your legacy, because you can choose what's a part of your legacy. We have that ability to choose what's going to be a part of our legacy. And that's the power that I choose to, focus on. What can I choose? What can I control? I can laugh a little more. I can still write these empowering Hey Sis posts because despite how bad the situation was or how scary it looked, there's still an opposite end to that.
Yeah. You've made it through. Not to say that you don't still have things to deal with every day, but
Right.
but you've made it through things that you felt like were awful at the time.
Right.
And it seems as though you have kept a really good perspective of this is just part of the journey. This is you don't get to have rainbows and sunshine every day. I mean,
Right.
would you appreciate it if you did?
Right. Exactly. And you've got to, and sometimes I listened to something this morning. I want to say and share this. Sometimes you don't have to have a rainy or stormy experience in order to appreciate that. Because some people will create things. They will say, oh, well, maybe I need to create this terrible experience just so I can relate or have this story of why I like rainbows so much. No, I mean, you don't need to have that. You can just have the awareness that this is good,
Mm-hmm.
and I can respect that you've gone through something really awful, and I can empathize with that, but that doesn't mean that I have to put myself in that story in order to be able to empathize with you.
Right.
I just have to care. I just have to like rainbows, and sunshine, and that's really what it's about. So, but it's just a journey, and we're all becoming, right? So what does our journey of becoming look like? And where are we at? We're all at different parts and different places. And that's okay, right? So it's just a matter of focusing inwardly in order to give out what we're really wanting. And then we'll get that back eventually. I got to believe it that it's going to happen, all the good stuff.
I
It's
I
got to
believe
come
it.
back.
I
Yeah.
believe it's definitely going to come back, and it's going to come back in bigger ways
Right.
than just you having something nice out of it. It's impacting other people,
Right.
which ripples and
Right.
grows.
Right.
That's pretty exciting to think about.
It is. And being able to let that go, right? Because we like to control a lot of stuff. So we're like, well, this is how I want it to come back. I want it to be this. I need
Oh yeah,
$1 million, which, it's still going to come.
that
But,
sounds great.
like, yes.
Sounds great, but with even if we don't hit the expectation of what we have in our mind, I honestly believe that something fantastic is going to come from it.
Right. Yeah. And it will. But we just have to trust that it's coming, and we have to trust the journey. So even though it may look like, I mean, sometimes shortcuts to beautiful destinations are kind of scary,
Mhm.
right? I don't know. Maybe you have to go. I mean, have you walked around? Like, I don't know. I like Ha Ha Tonk. I don't know if you've been
Oh, it's
to
beautiful.
beautiful out there, right? So, but there are some places, I mean, can you imagine, going there at night, and maybe you're not, from the country, or you're not used to that. So it might be scary, but then when you
Right.
go out, then there's a beautiful waterfall, or,
Right.
there's sometimes you've got to go through a little bit of scary in order to kind of get that. But you just have to trust the process, trust the journey. It's still going to be good, even though it looks a little scary and a little skeptical, you know, right now. Just hold tight and hold fast and push through, and believe that it's going to work out for you. So,
What is a piece of advice that you would give somebody you wish somebody would have given you when you were 18 years
oh my
old?
gosh, would I have listened at 18?
Would you have
Oh
listened?
my
I don't
gosh.
know. So, all of this, I started this because I had my moment. I was sick and worried, and I
Right.
wanted to make sure that my son had access to everything he needed to
Mhm.
be successful. And hearing this, like, I think the same thing. Would I have listened? Because I had people that were giving me advice that I disregarded.
Right.
But what do you wish you would have listened to? Some advice that you wish you would have listened
Mm.
to?
That's such a good question. I think I'm trying to think back. I'm like 18. I was in the military. Um, oh gosh. I think my advice would be to not be afraid to tap into the power of who you truly are, because it's good and it's beautiful, and you have to trust that.
Mhm.
And so often we are fooled by the external voices or the situation. Like, we're young, right? So we can't really see, but I think to truly hear and know, because I would feel off about a lot of things, but I didn't trust what I was feeling, because I mean, everybody around me was telling me, you know what I mean?
It'll be fine.
It's
It's
you.
good.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a problem with you. That's how you're feeling, right? You got to fit the mold. You got to do these things. But I think just learn to trust the power of you, the power that's inside of you. Um, I probably would have put out a lot more books, but I also trust the timing,
Yeah.
in my journey. But looking back, I mean, there was a lot of things that I was going for and doing, and um, and I probably would add, like, and trust that certain people are good for you.
Hmm.
You know, because not everybody's out to, you know,
For sure.
to stab you, there's a lesson in everything. And so, um, I think learning to trust certain people, and to take their advice, to heed their advice.
Do you feel like that was maybe a little bit more challenging being a military kid and you didn't have the stability of being in the same place for a long time? Did you get to build some deep, lasting friendships as a kid
I think
moving
I
around?
did. Yeah,
Did
I
you?
think I did because honestly, what moving around in the military taught me is that I don't have time to waste around. Like, this is me.
Mhm.
This is who I am. So either you're gonna like me right away or you're not. Or I'm gonna feel that. I learned later on to just trust how I was feeling. But this is me.
That would have been
So
powerful for me to catch on to as a kid
yeah.
because I went through with lots of insecurities and I wish I would have adopted that. I wish I had the confidence in high school that I did now. I would have been a cooler kid for sure.
We all would be, right?
Yeah.
Hindsight. No, I think that's good, and that's part of what makes you who you are now, but that was something that I had to learn early on because, like I said, I had people, who made fun of my name, who made fun of who I was, but there's, especially growing up in Europe and Germany, I mean, there's so many people that, I mean, we're still friends on Facebook, right? And thankful for Facebook, but
Yeah.
we were still connecting outside of that. I have a childhood friend, excuse me, um, from my time in El Paso, Texas. So our parents bought a house up in Fort Bliss, and my sister still lives in that house now. She took over the house, one of my sisters. But that relationship that I made with my friend, I mean, we still pick up the phone and we will talk like no time has gone,
That's awesome.
and so you build those relationships because you don't have time to focus on what doesn't matter.
Right.
You just cut through all of that. That's what military life has kind of taught me, but it's also made it you get through good relationships faster, but you also get to experience the shitty ones too,
Yeah,
right?
for
So
sure.
there's still mean people out there, there's still mean girls, there's still all of that, but I mean, hey, it's just a matter of saying this is who I am,
Mm-hmm.
so you can like me or not. And I think that has helped me to be in a lot of the rooms that I'm in, because there are a lot of rooms and a lot of things that I've done where I am, the one and only. I'm the only female. I'm the only Black female. And that comes with some challenges and some, opportunities, to build different connections and to speak, even though my voice is shaking and even though I have anxiety like through the roof, is facing all of that and then seeing how the beauty of it, I mean, now, there's a lot of rooms now that I'm not the only female, which I love, and but it's about being able to say this is who I am and I'm comfortable with who I am. I was gonna wear a pin that said I love me. It's a little heart pin. I like little push pins and um anyhow, so I didn't wear that, but I looked at it, but I was like, "Ooh, but it kind of aligns with that because you have to develop a love for yourself." And growing up in my family, you learned really easy and really quickly rule number 6 because they will laugh at you and make fun of you. But you learn that, like, okay, hey, if I'm putting on something and I look crazy, I'd rather know that I look
For
crazy
sure.
rather than everybody smile in my face and tell me I look nice, but really they're going to talk about me because I look crazy.
Hmm.
Where my sisters, will be like, girl, no, because you're looking like. And so learn to laugh and learn to accept that and just learn to say, and then learn to say what my boundaries are. I don't care if you feel like I look crazy. I like what I'm wearing today. And then they will accept that, right? They'll say, okay, well, I love that for you. You like it. I love it.
Yeah, good for you.
So, but having those relationships and things of that nature, but it's, life teaches us a lot, right? It's just such a wild ride and a wild journey, but we can choose to embrace it or we can choose to fight everything every step of the way. And I'm at the point where I just want to allow, but I also want to be mindful that I still have the power to control where I want to be headed, where
Yeah.
my end destination is.
Yeah. Have to stay
So,
focused on the end goal too.
mhm, absolutely.
So I do want to talk a little bit more about this. Who's target audience for this when you wrote this book? Who do you have in mind?
So, writing my Hey Sis journal, this was for all of the women and especially military women that were going through, different heartaches. Because I feel like women in particular, who have had enough life experience, they've gone through so much stuff. And on most of the time they don't talk about it. They haven't said anything. But, it talks about self-love in there, it talks about healthy relationships, and there's an opportunity to journal. So they'll find a Hey Sis letter from me that I wrote. And then it goes into affirmations, space for you to write affirmations. There's questions in there for you to really kind of think and help you process. Why am I thinking this negative way? Or how do I correct, or not necessarily correct, but how do I enhance my mindset? Right. And then there's there's an opportunity to write a manifest letter. And every Sunday now, I host a manifest party, call it a manifest party. I do it on Zoom. I've got a private group. I've started a company called Tailored Resilience. And so there'll be tailored resilience workshops and my tailored resilience events and more
That's
books.
awesome.
But I have a Facebook group. There's a private group called the Sis Circle, because I'm always like, hey, sis. So it's our sis circle, our sister circle. And in that, they can get access to the Zoom link. But we do this manifest party. And what it is just an opportunity for us to focus on feeling good, right? Because the week will knock us down and get us like the week, sometimes even a day, even a moment can just tear us down. And we get so caught up in that darkness, right? But we need to focus on dedicating time. We're just feeling good, focusing on all the good things and focusing on the positives. And, and as hard as it is, sometimes it's better with friends. So why not be in a group of other women who are going through those things? So we get together and we do create a manifest letter for the week, but what it is it's a letter that you write to yourself as if everything has already happened in the best possible way. And so that's all in the book. But I have had a lot of guys tell me that they like the book as well.
Really?
So I did think about writing one for the men.
Hey, bro.
I don't know if I could do
Sup, bro?
maybe Hey King, but then I don't know. It just feels weird. I will probably honestly just stick with Hey Sis because, I'm a girl. I know how to do girl stuff. And I
That's
just feel like
fair.
that's,
Not to say that you can't branch out,
I mean,
because
but
the same principles apply
they
for
do.
guys.
You're
They
right.
do.
You're right.
A lot of guys are not open enough to talk about it, but that's our problem.
Yeah. Well, maybe that'll be a co-author
A joint
opportunity.
venture.
Yeah, absolutely. That
I'm
might have to
down.
be something because I'm like, there's certain experience, and yes, you're right. There are certain things that cross and that are broad, but
Mhm.
I don't know.
It's
And it's,
interesting.
yeah,
So how do people find you? How can they join the group? How can they find the books?
absolutely. So, my name, Tosombra Kimes. I need to spell that because some people are probably still thinking in their head Tuscumbia,
Mhm.
but so Tosombra, and my last name Kimes, KIMES.com. If you go to tosombrakimes.com, you'll be able to see some links there. Find me on Facebook. Honestly, find and follow me on Facebook, my main page. There's also the Tailored Resilience on Facebook. You'll see that, and they'll have links. You will have to answer some questions for the private group. We want to be mindful of who we're allowing in there to keep the space safe.
Sure.
But yeah, we'd love to, have people reach out, send me an email, shoot me a message on Facebook if you're not on Facebook. And I'm also, I would say give me a call, but there's a business number I can give out, 573-246-0406. So you can contact me via that number as well.
Okay. And is that through Blue Star Families, or is that
That is going to ring straight to my
Your
cell.
cell phone.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, that's going to ring straight to my cell. It's a Google number.
Oh,
So it's a free number.
lovely.
Yeah. So those of you that are doing business stuff, you don't have to give your personal number out. Just get a Google number and then have it forwarded to your cell.
It's perfect.
And then that way you
I
know when
put my
it's
cell phone number on everything, but I'm a real estate
oh,
agent, so I want people to call me. Granted, I get lots and lots of spam calls,
see?
probably more than most people.
Right. And that's the only way to kind of put up that boundary to protect your space, right? Because I used to do business and I used to get calls all the time and emails all the time. And you get like, oh, I need to respond to this, right? Sometimes you, especially if you're new to business, you're like, I'm going to respond to everything.
Mhm.
And then you're working 2 a.m. and you need sleep in
Right.
order to do all the other stuff. And so what I found was with the Google number, it allows me to, I can look at it. And if I'm in a place where I can answer, great. And if not, then that's fine. And those who need to contact me have my direct number. And they're
I treat my phone that way too,
Mhm.
though. Like
Oh,
if
that's
I'm
good.
doing something, I'll call you back.
See?
And I do call people back, so that's positive.
Yeah,
But
that is. You already have a solid boundary. I like that.
yeah. Well, I didn't always. Whenever I got into real estate, I was like the same thing. I didn't want to let somebody slip between the cracks,
Right.
but if they're in that big of a hurry that they can't wait 10 minutes for me to call and they're going to call someone else, I mean, I'd gladly give you some phone numbers,
Right.
people to call.
Right.
But
Right.
yeah, I don't need that in my life necessarily.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
perfect. Well, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. I am excited about what is going to come in the future of the organizations that you're involved in and just the impact that you're having on people in this community here. So
Yeah.
be a wider reach.
Thank you so much for asking and for the opportunity to come in and share. I know we probably could have talked for 2 more hours
Easy.
there at the coffee shop.
Easy.
But no, I'm definitely grateful, and I'm looking forward. I know it's all going to be so many good things, and I can't wait to hear so many more positive stories on the impact. Right? That's the legacy.
Absolutely.
It's the
Yeah.
legacy we all want to hear.
Very
Yeah.
cool. All right. Well, have a lovely day.
All right. Thanks.
Yeah, boy.